For the beauty of the earth and the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Source of all, to thee we raise these words of grateful praise. Please join with me in reading our bond of union. Hey, it's there. All right. Each week, we come together for the study and practice of morality and religion as interpreted by the growing thought and the noblest lives of humanity, hoping to prove helpful one to another and to promote truth, righteousness, and love in the world. Peace be with you. And also with you. Let's take this time to pass the peace among our neighbors. I'd like to say peace to Dave Proudfit, peace to Mary Ellen Miller, to Karen and Steve Herwig, to Reba, to Matthew, to Hildy. Peace be with you.
Peace be with you, Barb.
And also with you. Or what is it now? And with your spirit?
Oh, I don't know. Whatever they want to
like
say.
they changed it. Are you like doing
All right. All right. We're ready to sing our first hymn. Everybody's up and at it. Let's turn to page. Oh, we don't need to turn to pages. Just look on the screens. Okay. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Des Moines, a place where you never know just exactly what's going to happen. And this is especially true during the summer because the celebrants are in charge, and that's, several different people. And we're all charged with inviting someone from the group here or outside to share their stories. And then we have to fill in the blanks. So it's always different. We get new personalities, and that's great. Now, for you visitors, we welcome you especially, and new folks from here or for here this few times. And I know you must have some questions about, what goes on around here, or some of these people. Every first Sunday of the month, we have a curiosity circle in the back of the auditorium here, led by Faithia Leonard. And if she doesn't know the answers to everything, she'll find out. And you'll get to meet other new people in our group. So grab your drink and your snack and come on in here right after the service. And you'll still have time for the forum, okay? All right. Let's see. Now, one thing that's really going to change kind of permanently very soon will be our new minister, right? We're all looking forward to that. And he's going to give us a little preview of his energy and format next Sunday. Because I called him and said, would you provide the special music for this service? I thought that'd be nice. But he said, well, who's going to be working on it? And I said, no, we don't know. And of course, he just stepped right in, took over. It's great. And we've had a celebrants meeting with him, and we're really looking forward to our new path ahead. And now I want to introduce our guest speakers for the day. These are a couple of people that are very dear to me, and I've known for many decades. But they were still a little reticent about accepting my invitation. But fortunately, they came through because they love each other and me, so that worked fine. All right, so we are a people of covenant and not creed. And ever mindful of our interconnectedness, we aspire to care for our own well-being, each other's well-being, and the well-being of our community as a whole. Join me in reading the chalice lighting words in your program on the screen. We light this chalice for the gifts of community, for hearts made tender by our care of each other, for hard truths shared in love, for threads of relationship that bind us even as they liberate us. And now I'd like to invite Linda Goff, whose name was inadvertently left off of the program. She is going to have an invitation for us.
Thank you, Barb. As she said, I'm Linda Goff, she, her, and I'm here from Green Sanctuary. Nearly every day during July, we heard reports on the nitrate levels in our drinking water, and many of us are concerned about this issue. So Green Sanctuary Committee is partnering with Central Iowa Sierra Club to bring Chris Jones to the church for a talk titled Struggling with the Truth About Agriculture and Water Quality. Dr. Jones is the author of this book. Some of you may own it. It's called The Swine Republic. He is a retired research engineer who has expertise in agriculture, the environment, and water. And Dr. Jones is especially known for not mincing words regarding the damage done to Iowa waterways. So his talk will be August 26th at 7 p.m. here at the church. However, we hope you'll come early at 6:15 and bid at our silent auction fundraiser. Proceeds from the auction will be donated to the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation, and specifically for the Brenton Slough Foundation. This slough is in Dallas and Polk counties, and it includes 1,113 acres of wetlands, woodlands, and oak savanna. And it provides habitat for wildlife, and plays an integral role in the ecology of the watershed, which is our tie-in with Dr. Jones' presentation. So if you'd like, please come, and also if you'd like to donate items for the auction, such as gift cards, nature books, or artwork, please see me, Katie Allen, Linda Lemons, or Don Shepard. We're posting some flyers about this event in the church today, so you can get it on your calendar. I hope to see you there. Thank you.
By the way, I'm Barbara Martin, she, her, hers. Okay. And if you have personal questions for either one of these men, please join them at the forum 30 minutes after the service is over. Be pondering that. Okay. Please join with me in the responsive reading, 719 in your book, and should be on the screen. Oh, may I join the choir invisible of those immortal dead who live again in minds made better by their presence. Live in pulses stirred to generosity, in deeds of daring rectitude, in scorn of miserable aims that end with self, in thoughts sublime that pierce the night like stars, and with their mild persistence urge our search to vaster issues. So to live in heaven, to make undying music in the world, breathing a beauteous order that controls with growing sway the growing life of humanity, that better self shall live until human time fold its eyelids and the human sky be gathered like a scroll within the Torah, the tomb. Its martyred souls have for us who survive too long. May I reach that purest heaven, be to other souls the cup of strength in some great agony, enkindle generous ardor, feed pure love, beget the smiles that have no cruelty, be the sweet presence of a good diffused, and in diffusion ever more intense. So shall I join the choir invisible, whose music is the gladness of the world. Now today, wouldn't you know, this story is going to be a little different. Instead of our usual narration, we'll be sharing an interview from a YouTube channel called Hi-Ho Kids. And on that channel, curious kids meet and interview people with unique experiences and perspectives. In this video, the children meet an old woman and ask her questions about what life was like when she was their age.
Hi.
Hi there.
What are we here to talk about?
Well, I think it might be about how old I am.
How old are you?
I'm 101 years old.
101? That's like older than anyone I know.
I suppose it is.
Where are you from?
Well, originally I was born in Philadelphia, way over there on the East Coast.
I was born in New York City.
Oh, you were? Oh, so you've been born in the East too?
Yeah. What was it like when you were my age?
Well, we didn't have radio. We didn't have television, no telephones when I was a little girl.
No iPads?
Nope, there were not even any trucks. I mean, we had wagons and horses pull them.
Wow, that must have been a long time ago.
It was a long, long time ago.
So, did you have fork and knives back then?
Oh, yes, forks and knives and even spoons.
Phew. I thought maybe you had to eat with your hands. Back then, did you see any wars?
Well, I did, and I was in the war. I was in the Second World War. We worked on decoding and encoding machines. Very secret work.
So, what do you do for fun?
Oh, when I was a little girl, well, I had dolls and blocks, but I really liked boys' things. I liked marbles and tops. Well, I thought boys were much luckier than girls. We had to wear skirts and stockings. You know what stockings are? Even in the coldest weather. Well, they didn't have slacks or pants for girls.
Girls couldn't wear pants?
That's true.
That is not fair.
I thought so too.
So, what is your job?
Oh, well, my job was being a teacher in college, but I retired a long time ago, and I taught biology. And if you look at my shirt here, you could see some of the things that I've taught about. Could you possibly know what this one is?
Oh, that's a spider.
Oh, wonderful.
What's your favorite insect?
Ants. I did research on ants. But you know what an ant looks like, don't you?
Yeah, it's like this tiny, and they can carry a big thing, like a banana. Like 3 of them can, even though they're this tiny.
You're very good. And you're only 6 years old?
What do you like to do for fun?
Well, right now I'm watching the Olympics. I write books, I do puzzles, I enjoy email. I mean, I write to a lot of friends, and I even play Scrabble. Do you know how to play Scrabble?
No.
Well, you should ask somebody to play Scrabble. It's lots of fun. Also, I try to get exercise every day.
Every day?
Yep.
Good.
Some old people aren't very well anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, some of them can't remember things. Some of them are really lame, and they have to have somebody to help them. But I can do everything myself,
That's good.
and that's good.
And that means you're really old, but you're really good at it.
Yeah, and I enjoy life.
What is the hardest thing about getting old?
You miss people. Oh, and especially when you live over 100 years, most of the people I ever knew in my family are already dead. But that happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, a person in my family died.
Oh, and did you know the person?
Yeah, it was my great-grandfather, and we still have a picture of him up on our mantle to remind us of when I was playing with him.
That's wonderful.
Are you afraid of dying?
No, I'm not afraid of dying. I feel very healthy and happy. My doctor said I'd probably die in my sleep. So I'm not afraid, because I have a good life.
So, what's the secret to living a long life?
Being happy, working hard, getting some exercise, doing things for yourself, not expecting other people to do everything for you. And all of those things make you live a long life.
Well, it was nice to meet you.
Oh, it's wonderful to meet you. Have a great life.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another mountain. There are mountains and hillsides enough to climb. There are oceans and rivers enough to cross, enough to land. His love, sweet love.
I'm Anna Davis Evans, she, her, hers, a pastoral care associate for our congregation. Life brings transitions, some welcomed, some weathered. Should you find yourself in the midst of a transition, in need of someone to listen, please reach out to the pastoral care team so one of our associates can set up a time to meet with you. You can also request assistance or volunteer to provide it by visiting our Caring Community page on our website, by reaching out to us at our email on the screen up here, or by reaching out to any of those lovely people pictured up there as identified by these blue ribbons in your church. A memorial service for Aaron Keller is planned for Saturday, September 6th in Kansas City. The family is trying to determine if folks would be able to get to Kansas City for the service, which will be quite special with several musical guests who worked with Aaron, or if an additional service should be held here in Des Moines. You can help the family out by answering the survey listed in this week's intercom. We know there are as many joys and sorrows to be shared as hearts beating in this hall. For the ill and injured, we send you wishes of healing. For the sick at heart, the scared, and the struggling, we surround you in this community of love. For the grieving, may you find moments of peace in which to rest. And we want to remind you that there is a grief support circle that meets on the second Monday of the month at 5:30 p.m. in the minister's office. We know there's more going on in your lives and more people weighing on your minds. We now share the names of those you are holding in your hearts who may need some special care and attention. You may speak the name now or type it into the chat for those of you on Zoom. As we speak these names, may the love of our community hold them all. We now light 3 candles. One for the joys and sorrows shared aloud, another for those shared in writing, and a third for those held silently among us. For all of these, we now observe a minute of silence.
was coached on this, and then I learned the way of life. Maybe you can blame old age. I'm Dave Whitkey. I'm not yet 101, but I've got my eye on it. My first trip to this church is how I'm going to open my presentation today. But what we're going to be doing today is telling tales. Tales connected with the history of our church and some of the things and lessons we might have learned from things that have happened in our past. I'm going to mention several episodes. I want to start out with my own first trip to this church because I think it kind of sets the tone for what I'm going to say. I walked into this church first time in 1963, and I had no intention of being here, and I had no intention of coming back. I came here because we were new in town. I had a job, I had relatives in town. My wife knew nobody, and she said to me, "David, I know your feeling about churches, and your feeling about religion, but I don't know anybody in town, and there's one place I know I can find some people who are at least like-minded that I might be able to become acquainted with and become friends. So on Sunday, I'm going to go out to the Unitarian Church, and you can either come or not as you wish, I don't care." And I said, "Well, my father would disown me if he knew I let my wife in a strange town go to a strange church alone and escorted, so I'll come with you this first time just to get you in the door." So I was sitting in the audience, and this minister walked out and started talking in a Southern Baptist accent. And he talked slowly and like he was from the Carolina mountains or something. And I thought, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And that pastor was John Isom, and he served us longer than any pastor we've ever had. John's sermon that Sunday was he had spent the week reading Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, a new book that had just hit the bookshelves, and he had spent a week reading it and studying it and coming to some conclusions. By the way, that book was basically the beginning of the environmental movement in the United States, and John was right on top of it. He told us what he had learned from the book, and it was fascinating. And then at the end, just a little ethical twist. He said, "Now, folks, these are lots of problems humanity faces, and it's up to us human beings to address them and solve them. There's no supernatural force that's going to come down and intervene and solve our problems for us. If we're going to address these things, we've got to get busy and do it ourselves." Well, I went away that morning thinking, that was really pretty good. It was a little bit like getting a good university lecture, and just a nice human ethical twist at the end to point out that we have responsibilities. So, Priscilla, I think maybe I'll come back next week and see what happens. So the next week, John had spent the week reading a novel by Nicholas Kazantzakis called Zorba the Greek. Some of you may remember the book and or the movie. Well, it was a novel, and it was a popular novel, but John had read it with a different perspective. He had gone through all the characters and situations in that book and figured out what were the moral and ethical choices that they faced at different points and in different situations, and which types of responses and ethical responses had had good results and which ones had had disastrous results. And he urged us all to, when we read, to think about what is really being said, and that there are lessons to be had wherever you turn, and that how you respond to situations can make all the difference in the world. so I started coming back. Now, a couple weeks ago, Al and Teresa did a swell job of discussing this church's history of buildings, and this building in specific, and the grounds, and all about how it evolved and about the building itself. So I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to be talking more about what's gone on within the congregation, the people interactions, what we've done and said and conspired and accomplished together. A lot of these things I'm going to talk about involve people, and there's no way I can cover all the significant people that I've met during the years I've been in this church. That might make another interesting program sometime or forum, just for us all to reflect back on who the people have been in our church history, who influenced us and guided us. Or maybe the list of our 34, Reverend Seek, 34th pastor at this church, 33rd, depending on how you count them. There was a 2-year period where we didn't have a pastor, we were between pastors, and the congregation led the services. My wife Priscilla and Joe Brisbane, who was a long time, organized the services for 2 years. For part of that time, we hired a part-time pastor, Doug Smith, who was a wonderful, not retired, but departed Lutheran minister, and he gave us some really good sermons. But so it's either 33 or 34, depending on whether you count him. By the way, something like 14 of those ministers have been women from the very beginning. And they have been some of our most momentous years while those women were in power. So I'm not going to just dwell on a lot of people, but more of the things they've done or accomplished together or alone. And I want to start with this wonderful, beautiful pulpit. This pulpit was handcrafted for us and given to the church as a gift by Don Mostrom, a member of ours who was a woodworker and a music instrument maker, who several years ago, unfortunately, developed sawdust allergies, so he had to give up his woodwork. But he carved this beautiful pulpit for us in response to a commission or a request from another one of our members, Jim Fox, who wanted to remember his first wife who had died, and she had been very active in our congregation. So he commissioned this, Jim Fox commissioned this pulpit, and Don Mostrom carved it so beautifully. Then I want to mention Amos Emery, who was the architect. I never had the pleasure of meeting Amos Emery, but there was an old-timer here when I joined the church named Oval Quist, who had been a member of the church way back for when they were downtown. And I talked with him a lot about the church history, and he told me about Amos Emery. Now, Oval himself was an interesting person. He came as a child with his family from Ohio by ox cart across Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and settled in Essex, Iowa when he was a child. And he still had some vague memories of that ox cart trip. Anyway, Oval was telling me about Amos Emery. And he said, Amos gave us the land to build the church on, and then he volunteered to be the architect to build the church with several provisos. It had to have good big glass windows that looked out towards the city. This room had to be called an auditorium. He was insistent it should not be called a sanctuary because that doesn't fit into the Unitarian way of thinking. And he made sure by putting a sign over the door here, it says auditorium. It also came in handy because the stage was designed to handle not only our Sunday services and gatherings, but also a drama workshop, which was then the preeminent dramatic group in the metro area. And it had originated from this congregation in this church, and the presentations were going to be put on this stage. Unfortunately, soon after this church opened, the theater movement changed to in the round, and so they started moving their presentations down to Channing Hall, now Griffin Hall, where they could give their presentations in the round. Let's see, what other provisos did he have? Tile. Well, this came up a little later. When the building was almost finished, Amos came to the Board of Trustees and said, you know, my mother died a couple months ago, and I've got her ashes. And I would really like to bury her ashes in the foyer of the church under one of the tiles and have that be a memorial to her. Well, the board didn't like that idea. And they said, no, Amos, you can't do that. But Amos was at the church a lot while it was being built. And the legend, which I'm not sure there's anyone left who can confirm it, but the legend exists that by sneaky methods, under one of the tiles in our lobby is Amos Emery's mother. And Wissy Swanson, who was a member here for many years, told me she had figured out which tile it was by going around and tapping on them all. One more thing. The question arose of church bells. Would we have a church bell? Because some people thought that was pretty old-fashioned and traditional and too mainline religion. But Amos came up with the idea, as I hear it from Oval Quist, that we should have bells, but they should be a new and innovative kind of church bell that was not the traditional ding-dong type, but something that would speak with a lot of different voices. Unitarians have lots of different voices interacting with each other, and he said we should have bells that reflect that. So we now have bells that some people think are basically discord, and people who listen closely will find there are themes that go through it. And traditionally, I'm not sure we do this all the time anymore, the bells were always turned on 5 minutes before the service started. And as soon as the service started, the bells were turned off. But once in a while you'll hear our bells play, and when you do, notice how unusual they are. The curtain that we have found has become worn and tattered and needs to be replaced in our current funds drive was given to us in 1967, I believe, by a man named Paul Kaiser. Now, not many of us will remember Paul because he lived in Ottumwa, and basically he only came into town for Sunday morning services and coffee hour, and then he'd go back home because his wife was a Catholic, and she was going to have no part of coming to a Unitarian service anymore, and he wasn't going to have any part of going to a Catholic service. So when complaints mounted about the old curtain, Paul coughed up the money and bought a new one. And believe me, it was very expensive even for then. I think our fund drive committee will find out how expensive one is now. And you can, when it was put up, it was a beautiful, deep, rich, kind of orange-brown color, as I remember. A really nice backdrop for everything. And so that was Paul Kaiser, who passed away many years ago. There's one other person who we should all remember, but we don't. His name was Lee Mold, and he was our Al Powers for decades. He was the person who came and took care of everything. He was quiet and in the background. You never heard anything out about Lee, but if help was needed, Lee was there, and he did all the repairs and everything, often mowed the grass when the minister wasn't mowing the grass. When Lee died, another thing about him was he was a quiet man. He went home every night after his work, which was manual labor somewhere, and he his hobby, his pastime, was he cracked black walnuts. If you've ever worked with a black walnut, you know how hard they are to crack. Lee would go home and pick the black walnuts, and crack them, pick them, put them in little cans, and every year on people's birthdays or Christmases, if there were some people in the church that he felt had been doing more than their fair share, he would bring them a little coffee can full of black walnuts as a gift. When he died, we installed a memorial to him, not in the memorial garden, but down the path to the parking lot. As you're going down to the parking lot today, notice as you approach the creek, no, just after you've crossed the creek, there is a walnut tree that has suffered storm damage over the years. So it's kind of damaged, but it's still there. And in front of it is a stone with a plaque on it to Lee Mold's memory. And when I saw the picture of the creek overflowing the other day and washing through that area, I thought, oh my God, I hope it didn't wash Lee away. And so I checked, and that memorial is still there, and you can see it as you go out. A tribute to the ordinary, everyday people who make up this congregation and make such contributions to it, often in the background, often with no attention, not much attention paid. One more thing I want to notice before moving on to the offertory. The background quilts and hangings, they're all made by members of our church. There was a quilting group who made several of them, and there are people in the audience I know who will remember more accurately than me because I wasn't a quilter, who all the women were who took part. But Zendel Lindell was one of the primary ones, and we often have her hangings up here. We change them with the seasons. One of those quilts was made by a person who is then had been our board chairman, Mary Shotwell. Mary Shotwell was a quilter, and she had just won the state fair blue ribbon with one of her quilts. And she brought it to what was then the equivalent of the food fair auction and auctioned it off for the church's benefit. Charlotte Shivers, who was a retired Universalist minister and a member of our congregation, bought it, displayed it in her home for a year, and then gave it back to the church, gave it to the endowment committee. She uses their logo whenever they have an activity. They were going to hang up this quilt. Well, you will often see it up here. I'll show you later. I don't want to take the time. But it was 6 different squares arranged in a long rectangle. Each one had different flower, and they were beautiful. And somebody in the endowment committee had the idea of, let's take that quilt and make it into greeting cards. And we can sell the greeting cards for the benefit of the endowment. And so we did that. And for several years, on the 2 or 3 weeks before Mother's Day, we would set up in the hall and sell these boxes of cards. We'd taken out, there was a variation. I think we charged $5 a box, and there were 8 different patterns within your box. One of them was the whole thing, one of them was half of the thing, then each of the 6 individual squares, and then there were a couple of innovative ones. I don't know what those boxes of greeting cards were at one time, stored in a lobby out here in between the office and the greeting area. But when I checked a couple years ago to see if we could start selling them again, during one of our many house cleanings to clean away stuff, the boxes had disappeared and I can't find out where they've gone. Or I'd suggest we start selling them again. Okay, I'm supposed to introduce the offertory rather than talk all day. When I joined the church, there was no offering taken during the service. It was considered vulgar, emphasizing worldly things instead of aesthetic or philosophical things, and an interruption to the service. So we simply didn't have any contributions that were made. There was a basket back at the back, and as you went out, you could put money in it. But all of the rest of the money was raised through the pledges. Then, one of the many years when we had financial problems, one of our members who was chair of the financial committee, John Royal, came up and said into the microphone, "Folks, we really need to start taking a collection because we need the money. And so from now on, we're going to have an offertory every Sunday morning. You know, you spend so much money on coffee every week and on a Pepsi." He said, "Just think if you put that coffee money into our coffers, how that would add up." So people started putting their coffee money, which was basically quarters, nickels, and dimes, into the offering basket. And a few months later, John came back up again and said, "Folks, you know, the ushers are really getting tired of counting all that loose change. Why don't we think about start putting in folding money?" So we did. We started putting in folding money. And Bruce reminded me of a time when we were a little short of money, and we were taking a collection, and John Isom said, "Folks, I want you to know that until I see a $50 bill up here on the stage, nobody's going home." Neither of us remembers whether anybody coughed up the $50. Maybe Bruce does. But then, giving it all to me more meaning, when Ken Hurdo, who was a young pastor, we were his first assignment, he was self-confident, he was cocky, and quite a change from John Isom, and sometimes rubbed people the wrong way, though when we got to know him, we got to really, really appreciate him. He organized our church, its administrative work. But one of the sermons, the way he introduced the offertory one Sunday was, you know, the offertory is more than just a way to support the church financially. The offertory is a religious symbol. He says, offerings have been made to our gods down through the years. He said, but when the Unitarians were still with the Congregationalists in New England, before we broke away, you know, the church was state financed. The church had the state had a tax that paid for all the church activities. And the Congregational churches were all thriving off of this. Well, when the Unitarians broke away from the Congregationalists over the issue of the Trinity and several other issues, they no longer had access to the state money. And so they started taking collection among themselves to finance their own independent church. And it was a symbol of their independence and the free church who was going to take care of itself. And that has lingered. So let's take an offering with that in thought. Thank you all. Now it's time for the first reading. This reading is the lyrics from a Peter Mayer song called Everything is Holy Now. And I'm going to read it rather than us singing it, partly because, as Bruce pointed out, the words are really better than the tune. And secondly, it reflects my own life experience. Peter Mayer's description in this song of Everything is Holy Now parallels my own ethical development. Also, I'm not doing a lot of reading this morning. I'll be doing some, but mostly I just want to talk with you and chat, tell tales. But some things need to be read. And I have a certain aversion to responsive readings and reading things together, partly based on a study that was made by the United Kingdom Methodist Church several decades ago, in which Methodists, of course, are famous for their singing. And they examined the hymns and their hymnals and their singing practices. And one of the conclusions of that study was that when people sing things, they don't digest the meaning. They're too busy thinking about the music and what they're going to say next and their voice. And they don't concentrate on what the words are saying. In other words, it doesn't sink in. So I'm going to ask that when we do readings here, we focus on what is being said, what the writer has meant to communicate, and what we are hearing in response. But this is Peter Mayer, Everything is Holy Now. When I was a boy, each week on Sunday, we would go to church, pay attention to the priest, and he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. He made the moment holy somehow. But today, I have found a difference. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was young in Sunday school, we'd learn how Moses split the sea in two, and when Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad that miracles don't happen still. But now, I simply can't keep track, because everything's a miracle now. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that there's anything here at all. So the challenge now is not to look for a miracle above, but finding anywhere in life where there isn't one. Everything is holy now. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. This used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. Now my whole life is lived in irreverent air, because everything is holy now. Read a young child's trusting face and say it's not a testament. That'd be very hard to say. See another morning dawn and say it's not a sacrament. That's something I'll never say. This morning, outside, I stood and I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head, remember back when church let out. Oh, how things have changed since then. The whole world is real and holy now. Now I walk proudly, I feel reverent air, because everything is holy now. Second reading this morning is by a poem by one of our members of our congregation, since passed, Frances Craig. Frances was here for many years, and she was a bit of a poet and a writer. She was a writer for the Des Moines Register. Knowing that she was a poet, Mark Stringer, in preparing his Easter sermon one year, thought to himself, Easter's kind of about resurrection and the resurrection of Jesus. And we don't put a whole lot of, many of us don't put a whole lot of stock in that. Francis, could you write us a poem about a Unitarian resurrection that we could use Sunday on Easter Sunday? And I know it's not Easter Sunday and it's not spring, but it's a nice day, so the poem still applies. So it's also that her poem is a nice follow to Everything is Holy Now. This is Francis's poem, Resurrection. Suppose that spring, this great awakening, came only once in your whole lifetime. Suppose that just this time you'd feel the wind all sweet with pussy willow pollen. That only once you'd find the hepaticas in Dutchman's breeches answering the sun through the woodland's leafless trees. That only once you'd see the shredding of the tree bark and the dry husk sheltering the winter's buds, and watch the blunt red buds of maples turn to flowerlets. Then wild plum thickets toss their creamy petals on the air, and quince burst into flame. Suppose this were the only time you'd see the rushing freshets filled with melted snow, or hear the creaking song of blackbirds down at the brimming pond, and then watch the little evolution of wriggling tadpoles turn to hopping things. Suppose that just this once you could stand on the edge of the world to watch and listen as the sun comes up. When the stream dances and the bud stirs and the bird sings, and out of its burst like morning the cry of human life. Suppose that spring and all new birth could happen only once, and then be glad that it comes on and on with timeless joy, as old as the earth and as new as your heart's awakening. Now, there was another reason to mention Frances Craig. She owned a set of beautiful, precious, hand-carved mahogany candelabra that she had brought from Switzerland or Germany, I don't remember which. And every Christmas, in the windows here, we would put up her candelabra with the Christmas lights, candles burning for the midnight services. And as her death approached, she said to me, "David, I love these candelabra, and I want to give them to the church if you'll do your best to see that they just don't get stashed in a closet somewhere and forgotten about." And I said, "Well, I'll do my best." So she willed them to the church. And so every Christmas since then, those candelabra have been sitting in our windows on Christmas Eve. And I always think of Frances when I see them. And when I look at those windows, I remember something I forgot to say about Amos Emery. A lot of people maintain that Amos, who had a bit of an ego, built his own initials into our window. If you look at them closely, there's a series of four capital A's, and if you stretch your imagination a little bit more, there's a series of E's that cross with it. A-E for Amos Emery. Whether it's true or not, Amos, we really do like your windows. Now, I'm supposed to speak this morning. I've already spoke quite a bit.
I think it's time for our life to flow on.
No.
Nope.
Nobody leaves until I see $100 bill. I want to say, I was only going to talk today because I was encouraged from home to do it. Now I'm being discouraged. You see a pattern.
Are you skipping this?
There's always another time. What?
Lessons learned from our
You've
past.
got more?
Oh yeah, I haven't gotten to my talk yet. This was the offering in the.
David, we've got to invite you back.
Okay. There'll be some actual heavier material stuff if you come to the forum later. I was told I'd have 15 minutes to give this presentation.
15.
Which was to start now.
Was to start now. Oh, we had a little miscommunication.
It's a pleasure.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And now our extinguishing words. We extinguish the flame and carry its warmth within us into the fragile, blessed, and sometimes uncomfortable work of community. We carry its light, reminding us that we belong to one another. May peace go with you wherever you go. And as we used to say, be open to life, expecting to love, and prepare to serve. Thank you.